From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang in review, and I'm your host, Leo Magpayo. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday lauded local governments, emergency responders, and volunteers for their rapid and coordinated efforts as Super Typhoon Uwan battered Luzon, emphasizing that preemptive evacuations were crucial in saving lives. In a social media post, the president thanked local governments, first responders, and volunteers for acting swiftly and working together to protect the Filipino people. According to government data, Uwan, one of the strongest storms to hit the country this year, displaced over 160,000 families, primarily in Bicol, Quezon, and Central Luzon. Evacuees are currently housed in temporary shelters. The Office of Civil Defense, or OCD, confirmed 4 deaths, with 2 more under verification, and reported widespread flooding in Pangasinan and Aurora. Uwan made landfall in Dinalungan, Aurora on Sunday evening, unleashing powerful winds and torrential rains that triggered landslides, power outages, and significant damage to crops and infrastructure. Malacañang said President Marcos has ordered continuous relief and rehabilitation efforts and instructed agencies to remain on high alert for post-typhoon recovery and monitoring.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has ordered continuous relief and rehabilitation operations in areas devastated by Super Typhoon Uwan with international name Fong Wong, which made landfall Sunday evening. In a press briefing Monday, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the president directed all government agencies to remain on full alert, prioritizing evacuation, medical response, and road clearing efforts. President Marcos instructed the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, to sustain relief distribution and closely monitor the condition of evacuees. The DSWD reported that the Bicol region, which bore the brunt of the storm, recorded the highest number of displaced families at 100,050. In Camarines Sur alone, 44,000 families were affected, while Quezon Province logged around 20,000 under the Calabarzon region. Castro noted that flood waters have begun to recede, allowing some families to return home. The chief executive also directed Health Secretary Ted Herbosa to deploy medical teams to all evacuation centers and tasked Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon with accelerating the clearing and repair of damaged roads. Government data show 71 roads remain impassable, mostly in central Luzon and the Cordillera Administrative Region. The Office of Civil Defense reported severe flooding in Pangasinan, which has since subsided. 4 deaths were confirmed, with 2 still under validation. No missing persons have been reported. President Marcos also ordered agencies to maintain 24-hour weather monitoring and continue rehabilitation efforts in areas previously hit by tropical cyclones Tino and Uwan.
Patuloy na pagbibigay tulong at deployment ng medical teams ipinag-utos si Pangulong Marcos Jr. Agad umaksyon si Pangulong Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. ilang oras matapos maglandfall ang Super Typhoon Uwan sa Dinalungan, Aurora noong Linggo ng gabi. Sa pulong kaninang umaga, ipinag-utos ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. sa Department of Social Welfare and Development o DSWD sa pangunguna ni Secretary Rex Gatchalian ang tuloy-tuloy na pagbibigay tulong sa lahat ng mga sinalanta ng bagyo. Ayon sa DSWD, patuloy nilang binabantayan ang mga evacuation operations at status ng mga evacuees. Sa Bicol Region na itala ang may pinakamaraming bilang ng evacuees matapos na umabot sa 100,050 na mga pamilya ang apektado roon. Sa Camarines Sur, aabot sa 44,000 families habang nasa 20,000 families naman ang apektado sa Quezon Province sa Calabarzon. Ayon sa OCD, 426,000 families ang narelocate agad na nakatulong na mapababa ang bilang ng taong nalagay sa peligro. Inaasahan naman na makakabalik na sa kanilang mga tahanan ang mga nasa evacuation centers matapos na unti-unting paghupa ng tubig baha doon. Ipinag-utos din ng Pangulo sa Department of Health o DOH sa pangunguna ni Secretary Ted Herbosa na siguraduhing mayroong mga medical teams sa lahat ng evacuation centers upang mabantayan ang kalusugan ng mga evacuees. Agad na pinasimulan din ng Pangulo sa Department of Public Works and Highways o DPWH sa pangunguna ni Secretary Vince Dizon ang rehabilitation efforts sa mga nasirang kalsada upang hindi maantala ang pagpapadala ng tulong sa anumang panig ng bansa. Sa datos ng pamahalaan, mayroong 71 na mga kalsada ang hindi pa madaanan dahil sa epekto ng bagyo, kabilang nasa Central Luzon at Cordillera Administrative Region o CAR, lalo na sa Mountain Province, Benguet at Apayao. May mga ilang kalsada rin ang hindi pa madaanan sa Aurora sa report ng Office of the Civil Defense. Pangasinan ang lubhang naapektuhan ng pagbaha na agad din namang humupa matapos na ang pananalasa ng Super Typhoon Uwan. Ayon sa OCD, 4 ang naitalang nasawi dahil sa Super Typhoon Uwan, pero 2 dito ang binabalidate pa ng ahensya. Wala namang naitalang missing persons, pero nilinaw ng OCD na nagpapatuloy pa rin ang rescue operations sa Pangasinan. Ipinag-utos din ng Pangulo sa lahat ng ahensya ng pamahalaan ang walang humpay na pagbabantay sa lagay ng panahon mula ngayong araw hanggang bukas. Pinapaalalahanan din ng Pangulo ang lahat ng concerned agencies na ipagpatuloy ang rehabilitation efforts sa mga lugar na sinalanta ng Bagyong Tino at sa mga lugar na napinsala ng Super Typhoon Uwan.
That was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Monday, Malacañang said that local officials who reportedly traveled abroad during the onslaught of Super Typhoon Uwan will be evaluated by the Department of the Interior and Local Government or DILG before any accountability measures are taken. In a palace briefing, Presidential Communications Office or PCO Undersecretary Claire Castro said the government will assess whether the officials' foreign trips compromise disaster response efforts in their respective areas. Asked if sanctions could be imposed for violating the DILG's directive requiring local executives to remain in their posts during calamities, Castro said the palace will defer to Interior Secretary John Vic Rimulya. The DILG earlier reminded governors, mayors, and other local officials to stay within their areas of responsibility and personally oversee emergency operations as Uwan, one of the year's most powerful typhoons, battered Luzon on Sunday.
Unang-una po ay kailangan muna itong ma-assess ano ba talaga ang kanilang pakay papunta sa ibang bansa. At kung ito po pa talaga ay nakaapekto sa mabilisang pag-aksyon para sa mga kababayan natin na nakaranas ng hagupit ng bagyo. At hindi po natin agad-agad ito masasabi na sila ay may sala na. Kailangan po pag-aralan muna. Titingnan mo po muna natin at ito naman po ay nasa pamumuno ni Secretary John Vic Rimulya. Tignan po natin at kung paano sila mag-explain despite that na may memorandum ay sila po ay umalis ng bansa.
That was Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Tuesday said Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is pleased with the government's timely response and cooperation during Super Typhoon Uwan, which reduced casualties. Communications Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the president is happy with how government agencies and local government units managed the impact of Uwan.
Ang mga nangyayari po kasing kalamidad at sakuna, minsan hindi po talaga natin maiiwasan. at nangyayari ito nang hindi natin ginugusto. So yung mga paghahanda po na ipinapakita ng mga agencies na nakakapagsagip ng mga tao mula sa peligro, nakikita po ng Pangulo ang magandang ginagawa ng ating mga ahensya. Sa tulad po ng nireport natin kahapon, 426 families ang nailikas agad at ito ay naiwas sa anumang peligro. So malaking bagay po iyan. Hindi po natin maiiwasan na mayroon pong nasasawi dahil po sa kalamidad. Pero dahil po sa preemptive measures na ginagawa po ng mga ahensya po natin, sa utos na nga rin po ni Pangulong Marcos Jr., mas malaki po ang nagiging pagsagip natin sa ating mga kababayan.
According to Castro, the Department of Energy or DOE has already restored power in 454 of 712 impacted towns, accounting for more than 60% of all storm-hit localities, citing an Energy Secretary Sharon Garin report. She noted that the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, led by Secretary Henry Aguda, stated that most cell sites and internet connections were restored, 82% for Smart, 77% for Globe, 63% for Dito, and 79% for Converge. The palace said that President Marcos had previously directed round-the-clock road clearing operations under the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, and dispatched cabinet officials to lead relief and rehabilitation efforts in provinces devastated by Uwan and Typhoon Tino. Among them were DSWD Secretary Rex Gatchalian in Catanduanes in charge of food distribution, Health Secretary Ted Herbosa in Leyte in charge of medical response, Education Secretary Sani Angara in Negros Occidental in charge of inspecting damaged schools, and Energy Secretary Sharon Garin in charge of power restoration. Castro stated that the president is still monitoring preparations as Pagasa has warned of Uwan's likely return into the Philippine Area of Responsibility, or PAR. The weather agency predicts that Uwan will reach PAR on Wednesday night and make landfall on Taiwan's southwestern coast before collapsing into a remnant low.
Ganun pa rin po, hindi pa rin po titigil ang ating mga ahensya, ang Pangulo, para maibigay agad ang tulong, maiwasan ang mga maaaring disgrasya sa ating mga kababayan. Nandun pa rin po ang mga preemptive measures dahil yun din po ang balita na maaaring bumalik. Ipagdasal po natin na sana hindi na.
Despite the devastation, President Marcos stated that precautionary evacuations made all the difference by greatly reducing possible losses. The Department of the Interior and Local Government, or DILG, joined the President in recognizing the LGU's efforts around the country for their prompt and decisive action in carrying out preemptive evacuations and early reaction missions. The DILG also thanked the police officers, firefighters, and volunteers who risked their lives in heavy rains and high winds to transport families to evacuation centers, help with relief efforts, and secure impacted areas.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Tuesday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. commended former United Nations Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon for his continued advocacy and leadership in promoting climate resilience and sustainable development, particularly in countries vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, such as the Philippines. During a courtesy call at Malacañang Palace in Manila, the President expressed appreciation for Ban's steadfast commitment to sustainability, stressing that such efforts are crucial to strengthening the country's resilience against natural disasters. Ban thanked President Marcos for the warm reception and expressed hope that the Philippines would swiftly recover from the devastation caused by recent back-to-back typhoons. His visit to Manila followed the onslaught of Super Typhoon Uwan and Typhoon Tino, which brought widespread damage to parts of the Visayas and Luzon. Ban on Monday joined the Trans-Pacific Sustainability Dialogue or TPSD in Makati City, where he urged the international community to support climate-vulnerable nations such as the Philippines in rebuilding from increasingly destructive natural disasters. The TPSD is a joint initiative of the Walter H. Shorenstein Asia Pacific Research Center at Stanford University and the Ban Ki-moon Foundation for a Better Future, which aims to accelerate progress on the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. During their meeting in February of 2024, President Marcos welcomed the continued support of the Global Green Growth Institute, or GGGI, where Ban serves as president and chairperson of the council. Ban reaffirmed the GGGI's commitment to assist the Philippine government in implementing sustainable and climate-resilient development programs. Joining the chief executive during Tuesday's meeting with Foreign Affairs Secretary Maria Teresa Lazaro, Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin, Presidential Communications Office Acting Secretary Dave Gomez, and Foreign Affairs Assistant Secretary Maria Teresa Almojuela. Ban was accompanied by Korean Ambassador to the Philippines Lee Sang-hwa, former Korean Ambassador to Australia, Jeju Peace Institute President Kim Bong-hyun, and former Korean Permanent Representative to the UN, Kim Suk.
Dateline Malacañang.
Mere days after twin typhoons Tino and Uwan devastated and flooded the country, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. inaugurated a metro-wide flood control program on Wednesday, vowing to keep it going all year and expand it nationally. The effort, known as Oplan Kontra Baha, pulls together national agencies, local government units or LGUs, and private sector partners to remove and clean rivers, creeks, and drainage systems around Metro Manila, which have long been filled with rubbish and debris, worsening floods during storms.
So, ang una natin kailangan gawin ay linisin lahat ng mga estero, lahat ng mga spillway, lahat ng ganito upang maging mas malalim yung ating pagdadaanan ng tubig, isang-isa. Pangalawa, para maayos natin at maging mas maganda ang pagtakbo ng tubig para hindi nga maiwan ang lupa na nanggagaling sa taas, yung ibig nagsisiltation. Hindi ito maaaring gawin na minsan lang. Ito ay patuloy nating gagawin, hindi natin titigilan ito. Kasama na ito sa MOOE ng DPWH, maintenance na kailangan nilang gawin every year. Ngayon, itong unang phase, kailangan dahil napakalalim pa, 10 meters pa yung huhukayin on average sa ating, ganun kababaw na yung tubig. 10 meters ang kailangan natin hukayin para yung iba 20 meters. I'm sorry, 10 feet. 3 meters pala, sorry. 3 meters, 10 feet upang matiyak natin na maganda ang pagdaloy ng tubig. Ngayon, we will continue to do this first part of the Oplan hanggang July of next year. Ng mga 9 months ito, hindi namin titigilan. Ngunit, even after that 9 months, ay patuloy lang, regular na ang paglinis, pag-desiltation, paglinis ng basura, lahat ito ay patuloy natin gagawin. Hindi natin pwedeng tigilan.
The plan was supported by Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon, Transportation Secretary Giovanni Lopez, Metropolitan Manila Development Authority Chairperson Romando Artes, and business leaders Ramon Ang of San Miguel Corporation and Manuel Pangilinan of Metro Pacific Investments Corporation. Ramon Ang of San Miguel, who had already pledged to assisting with Metro Manila's chronic flooding, was among the first to advocate for the coordinated clean-up effort which President Marcos vowed would soon be emulated in other flood-prone areas such as Cebu, Bacolod, Rojas City, Bulacan, and Pampanga.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday paid tribute to the late Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Juan Ponce Enrile, hailing him as one of the most enduring and respected public servants in the nation's history. In a statement posted on social media shortly after Enrile's passing was confirmed by his daughter, Katrina Ponce Enrile, the president praised the late statesman's decades-long career in law, governance, and public policy, saying it left a lasting imprint on the country's political and legal institutions. President Marcos described Enrile as a brilliant legal mind who remained sharp and steadfast in his conviction that law and governance must serve the Filipino people. The chief executive said Enrile's passing marks the end of an era, but his legacy will continue to shape institutions and guide future generations of public servants. President Marcos closed his message with a personal note of gratitude, thanking Enrile for his lifelong dedication to the country. Enrile, who died at the age of 101, held key positions across administrations, including Senate President, Defense Minister, and most recently, Chief Presidential Legal Counsel under the current Marcos Jr. administration. His career spanned both the Marcos Sr. regime and the post-EDSA governments, cementing his status as one of the most influential figures in Philippine politics for over 50 years.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. visited the island province of Catanduanes on Thursday to inspect areas devastated by Super Typhoon Uwan and oversee ongoing aid efforts for affected residents. The president went to Tubli Elementary School in Caramoran Town, where he also assessed classrooms damaged by Super Typhoon Uwan and last year's Super Typhoon Pepito. Tubli Elementary School serves 739 students and employs 30 staff. Of its 23 classrooms, 1 was completely destroyed, 14 sustained severe damage, and the rest suffered minor damage due to Uwan. President Marcos donated 2 Starlink Internet satellite units, 1 to Tubli Elementary School and another to the local government of Caramoran. The chief executive also inspected damaged homes and the seawall in the same village. According to Caramoran's report, 558 houses were totally destroyed and 2,127 were partially damaged. In Tubli Town, where the seawall helped shield the coastal community, 158 homes were completely destroyed and 370 were partially damaged. Nearly all motorized boats were wrecked by the super typhoon. Following the whole-of-government approach, President Marcos directed national agencies to continue providing assistance and support to help residents recover as quickly as possible. Among the aid programs in the Integrated Disaster Shelter Assistance Program, or IDSAP, of the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, or DSUD, which offers financial support to families who lost or sustained damage to their homes due to Super Typhoon Uwan. The president emphasized that coordination between national agencies and affected local governments remains ongoing for relief, recovery, and rehabilitation efforts. On November 5th, President Marcos signed Proclamation No. 1077, declaring a one-year national state of calamity to expedite critical response and recovery measures following the disaster.
Ang naging damage dito galing sa storm surge, dito sa natinitignan natin, galing sa storm surge. Meron ding damage dahil sa malakas na hangin. Meron ding damage na nanggaling sa malakas na tubig, malakas na pag-ulan. So, yun ang kailangan natin na ayusin. Pero sa ngayon, ang una natin ginagawa, relief muna. Lahat ng mga nasa evacuation center natin, tinutulungan natin, binibigyan natin ng pagkain, ng tubig. Nagdala kami ng mga Starlink para merong communication na maganda. Nakapagpadala na kami ng communication bago ng bagyo. So mabuti at nagamit ng mga iba't ibang bayan yung mga equipment na yun. Ito ngayon, so after the relief, wala na tayong search and rescue dahil all accounted for na. Kaya ang susunod natin na gagawin ay yung reconstruction. Andito ang secretary ng DSUD at meron silang bibigay na tulong doon sa mga totally damaged at magdadala rin tayo ng mga construction materials, mga yero, pati yung gamit. Ang problema talaga na dapat natin tignan, kasi kung baka maulit ito, baka kailangan natin talagang isipin na huwag magtayo ng kahit na anong structure na ganito kalapit sa dagat. Kailangan siguro maghanap tayo na design na itaas yung ano, kasi malaki, kahit na hindi maaring lagyan ng mataas na seawall dahil yung tubig dumating hanggang bubong eh. So we have to find another way kung saan nilalagay ang mga nandito, para kasi unfortunately katotohanan yan, mangyayari ito ulit eh. Kaya huwag natin sila ilagay sa alanganin. Hanapan na natin ng ibang paglalagyan na malayo na sa storm surge. So, pero nandito naman ang national government. Maganda naman ang ugnayan namin with the congressmen, with the local government, and up to the barangay level. Where's the chairman? Here. Up to the barangay level para lahat ng tulong na kailangan, unang-una alam namin, pangalawa ay maipaabot natin. Kasi ang local government ang nagdadala talaga hanggang sa mga bahay-bahay.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service is live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang in Review. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.